Hello Cambly learners, it's me, Cambly tutor Yuri. Today we'll be going over relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are words that are used to introduce relative clauses. Relative clauses provide additional information about a noun in a sentence. It's an important aspect of English grammar, and today we'll learn how to use relative pronouns. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Relative pronouns are words like who, whom, whose, which, and that. They're used to introduce additional information about a noun. We call this relative clauses. Let's use an example to help you better understand. Here's an example. The book that you borrowed is on the table. In this example, the relative pronoun that introduces the relative clause that you borrowed. The relative clause that you borrowed provides additional information about the noun, book. So if I recap that again, the book, the noun, that, introducing the relative clause, you borrowed, which adds more information, is on the table. So, the relative clause that you borrowed provides additional information to this sentence. We could have just said, the book is on the table, but by adding that you borrowed, we express a little bit more information about the book. And this additional information is the relative clause. Within this relative clause, we have a relative pronoun, that. Let's try another example. The girl who is wearing a red dress is my sister. In this example, the relative pronoun who introduces the relative clause, who is wearing a red dress. The relative clause gives more information about the noun, girl. Okay, so let's practice using some more examples of relative pronouns within relative clauses. Here's your next example. The house that my parents bought is big. In this example, the relative pronoun that introduces the relative clause that my parents bought. The relative clause gives more information about the noun house. Again, I could have just said the house is big, but by adding the relative clause that my parents bought, I add more information about the house. Another example. The book which she recommended is interesting. In this example, the relative pronoun which introduces the relative clause, which she recommended. The relative clause gives more information about the noun book. So again, I could have just said the book is interesting, but by adding the relative clause which she recommended, I add more information about the book. I'm going to cover 3 more examples to ensure this concept of relative pronouns used in relative clauses is clear and that you understand it well, and so that you can use it yourself in your English speaking and maybe even your writing. Here we go. 3 more examples. The woman who is standing by the door is my teacher. In this example, the relative pronoun who introduces the relative clause, who is standing by the door. The relative clause, who is standing by the door, provides more information about the noun, the woman. All right, next example. The student whom the teacher praised got the highest score. In this example, the pronoun whom introduces the relative clause whom the teacher praised. The relative clause gives more information about the noun student. And our final example. See if you can identify the relative pronoun and the relative clause. The girl whose father is a doctor won the science competition. What is the relative pronoun? What is the relative clause? And the relative clause provides more information for which noun. Relative pronouns are important aspects of English grammar that help provide more information about nouns. Practice using relative pronouns in different contexts to become more comfortable with their usage. For those who are unfamiliar with Cambly, Cambly gives you instant access to friendly native English speakers like me. And you can take English lessons anytime, anywhere, right from your phone or computer. So schedule your next lesson with me or any of our amazing tutors using the link below. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye.